surrounded by Florida, Bermuda, and...
Okay, so this is my day today. So this is how a disabled veteran has to deal with people who act weird around him, right? When he's just trying to get something to eat, for example. Okay. So I woke up somewhere around, let's say, 10 or so, right? Sometimes I'll sleep late, right? Cause again, I gotta deal with back pain, ankle pain, even doing just walking a little bit or this, that, and the other, right? Which I didn't have to deal with before the injury in the Navy. And even with the wreck, to the fall, I still functioned, right? As if nothing happened in the wreck, right? Go figure, though. Now, I don't know if I said something to somebody before the wreck, and that's why I'm still here, or exactly what I said to them, but I know it had to do something with Jesus, right? That much I do know, right? Raising me from the dead like he was. And the God who raised him from the dead. Whatever it calls itself, I don't know. But it's tied into the name that Jesus won't use anymore. Starting between Daniel and Malachi. And from Malachi to Jesus is still 400 years of Jewish history that got translated into Greek because of the Hellenization of the Greek Empire with all of their nations. Now, the problem with Greece is its tyranny, right? They're trying to take over other countries and make them all Grecians. Well, here's the point, okay? We're not all Greeks. I'm a little Greek, by the way. Maybe 6%. I don't know the actual percentage either. But I say I'm Greek, Italian, French, German, English, Irish, maybe Nigerian, because there's 1.2 or 3% in the gene pool, right? I was put into, right? And then Spanish, and then I think Arabic. But for the region I'm from, does that make sense? Yeah. That's kind of the point too, right? Now, for the last 3 days, right, I've been trying to get pizza from Little Caesars in Lincoln. And every time I go there, there's an issue with something going out. The first time, the computer system was down. But then how can you place online orders as well? Hypocrites, right? The second time, they were taking cash only. The third time, there was just one woman in the store, right? And she didn't want to meet. No. The only person in the store, the pizza for the lunch. So I walked out. I asked her why. Well, she said I'm the only one here. So am I. All I'm going to do is order the pizza and wait for the pizza in the correct area. That's all I've ever done. Anyone telling you more is lying out their damn ass. And I'm mad with them, not you, lady. I could have said that, but I didn't. I just walked out. Why? Because there's another Little Caesars in Buller. There's another Little Caesars in Buller. And I wasn't getting any bullshit from them. So I went to that one, got the pizza, ate the pizza in the car. There's no real movie playing this weekend for some reason. For December 9th, not in the theater I usually go to. Right. So I just ate the pizza in the truck. Came home and laid down. Why? Because even that little bit of walking can hurt your back and ankle. Yes, that's why. Now, what the hell's wrong with you? You're taking up some kind of crazy idea, and that only two people can actually know if it happened or not, and one of them has amnesia 2 weeks later, right? The only person who can know besides her is her biological dad, by the way, too. He had her for 4 days, right? And then the third group of people is the grandparents, right, in Arkansas, right? So between there, her staying with her dad, my ex-wife leaving me stranded in Tennessee after she went and got the daughter, on the way to get the daughter, right? I get back by bus, have to wire money from my mom, right? Everybody is on board with this, right? You understand the semantics and the problem, right? I'm alone with my ex-wife and stepdaughter sleeping in the bedroom. There ain't a snowball's chance in hell I'm gonna do anything to fuck with my freedom. Not only do I know I can go to jail if I molest a child by then, I wouldn't even approach her damn bedroom to see if the door was locked or not, or anything crazy like that, at all, right? From things I've learned growing up, right? Like I told you, I have made certain moves before I understood what I was doing was right or wrong fully, right? Kind of, as all people are, confused about sex, right? In the first place. See, the problem was there sex in Eden? The problem was, what kind of sex did they have to cause them to fall? And that's where I think you're getting bogged down with, right? Both ways. Now, here's the problem with the devil. When he goes about to deceive you, say you want to call him Loki or Aries or right, he comes at your wife gently. But with you, he's going to shame you, right? If you had sex with him, right? Now, he'll offer you a deal, 2 for 1 sale. Because, see, he's a hermaphrodite, too, right? Like Adam was. The tree of life still is, right? But he can become 3 people morphed out of him, right? You can't do that. No man can. Because he's more than a man or a woman. He's both, right? You're 2 parts of a third of the images of God, right? So there's really 3 parts, right? If you're half Japanese, half Irish, and half Italian, right? You're 3/3, right, of a different race, right? Not half. Right. So the problem is, right, simply put, I'm, for example, 29% Irish, right? Some percentage of English, right? Then French, German, right? Austrian, right? Area. Then Italian, Greek area. And then Spain, Nigeria, and Arabia. It's up, right? And those are my nationalities, right? So, now, Jesus, right, is the human representation also of the divine being in the celestial realm called Michael. And to win us back to God, he took upon himself the form of Adam, but not as male and female, but before the female was taken out of him. So you're not getting the picture, because we're now male and female, yeah, of what Adam looked like in Eden. Because most people don't know about true hermaphrodites, which if you're male and female, X and Y from the male and X from the female makes male and female. But XY from an angel and X with a female makes a hybrid. There you go. Half angel, half human. A hybrid, right? Now, if you're XXY from the male, right? Or XXX, which is triple X, by the way, right? And they don't tell you about this unless you watch the Discovery Channel. Or TLC, right? Or the Science Channel, right? Or the Travel Channel, right? Or the History Channel, right? I know you don't watch those channels, Christians, but you should. Because see, everything we're doing wrong is tied into prejudice about religious beliefs, right? Now, what is wrong is sacrificing your child while it's a child to an idol. You shouldn't be doing human sacrifices, right? Some malevolent God, we know his name, taught men to murder each other in its name, not the name of God. Right. And it's over sex. Not just who you do it with, but also how you do it and when you do it, and trying to make a legal way to do it through a law, I know, to change the simplicity of marriage, which is Eden was to become one flesh, right? And pairing Adam and Eve from one another into the sexual reproductive image, right? Now, once fully female, before the fall, if it took 9 months for Eve to have the baby, the conditions in Eden were so perfect that it didn't hurt her to give birth. Right? But after the fall, and the thorns and thistles and the sweat of your brow, and the multiplication of her 12 times a year, she has a period, right? Or once a month after the fall. Well, there's a reason for this, right? The hermaphrodite Satan and the hermaphrodite tree of life, right, warned them, tree of life, not to be with the hermaphroditic Satan in Eden, and told them that they would get the knowledge of good and evil if they ate of the fruit of his body, right? Which the Jews consider that the penis. Ask the woman who wants to sit in her man's shadow and taste his fruit. In chapter 2, verse 3. Now, if you sit in front of a man, ladies, and he's naked in front of you, what's in your face? His fruit. His fruit. The fruit of his what? Body. Which is called what medically today? The penis. This is how you bring the interpretation of the Bible into the 2000s, by the way. By understanding the metaphor to taste the man's fruit. out with our mouth. What would we call that today? A blowing job. And guess what? It's in your Bible too. Only you sell it. You know how many people even read a few passages to me from the Song of Solomon? I'm a zero. Zero. The only one I've heard is he's the lily of the valley, the bright and morning star, right? Well, that's talking to the woman, idiot. Damn. Not the man. But he is a woman and a man, right? In one body. The two parts made perfect in one. That's what Paul means, right? We know in part because we're half of Jesus, right? The male and the female. But by one Spirit, we're all baptized into his one body. As Paul pointed out. Also in Corinthians. But a different chapter. Well, it's after chapter 11. And it's in your Bible too, right? Now, Paul keeps adding more details. Until Galatians, right? 3:27 and 28, right? Right. Which, in the King James Version, that says there's neither Jew nor Gentile, bond nor free, male nor female, for you're all one in Christ Jesus, right? Meaning both of us are in his body. Not only that, if we're baptized into his body, we're putting on his half, right, of the female, if you're male, and the other half of the female, if you're the male, if you're female, right? Well, of course, this confuse anybody, especially the carnal men, the Orthodox men of Jesus' day. Not only between Malachi and Jesus were there bad teachings from the rabbis, right? They quit using the divine name, for example, and were teaching you couldn't even say it except on the Day of Atonement or something. Only the priest could say it, which again, the Bible never said that. Moses was not the priest. Aaron was. And Moses didn't write the divine name. The scribe of Moses did, right? We would call him a big, or her, a big, biographer. Sorry. Today. I don't know, dude. I don't know. But anyway, a biographer today, right? Whoever wrote it for him, about him, right? Now, anyone, right, writing a book about someone, right, has to have what's called the source, right? And whether Egypt knew him or not, right? Because, see, most kings don't report their losses, right? Either, right? Especially prideful kings like the Egyptian kings, right? I know. Now, it's always up to the defeated nation, right? To let my people go. When Cameron was in Egypt's land, let my Cameron go. I don't know if he really does or not, but you know what movie that's from. But anyway, he's singing, though, an Afro spiritual song during the slave days that has nothing to do with Moses, right? But the slavery of the Africans who were brought over from Africa. And I told you why. Because lazy Europeans wanted them to pick the cotton. Simply put. And they thought, hey, these black people, they're in a hot continent. Let's bring them over to Georgia. in the States. They can do the work in the fields. And we can reap the rewards while they're working for us for pennies a day. We'll just pay them room and board or something. And that's how and why they started taking people from Africa. Let's be real, people. For a minute here, right? In the first place, lazy Europeans thought it was hotter, probably in the South too, right? Florida, Georgia, South Carolina, North Carolina at least. Up to that line, anyway. Became the South, right? And Virginia. And the North, right? Was all the other continents, right? I mean, the countries or states or whatever at the time, right? Well, the problem is, I know, slaves up north, right? Black people ain't good stuff. Sorry, just a fact. So they were against slavery in a way. But at the same time, no one can really work well in the stuff. Right. Kind of just a simple truth there too, right? So anyway, the North was trying to do away with slavery because they knew that the lazy white slave owners just didn't want to till the damn land themselves. And that's why they brought the Africans over in a nutshell. They figured since they were from Africa, oh, well, we got trees and we got these little farmlands and they'll be better off in America than Africa. Anyway. Now, this might sound sane or insane to you right now, but I'm telling you the gospel truth. I know. But they don't understand, though, that the Lord ain't against a fair wage, but He is against slavery, right? Especially if you start beating the men service or in the maid service, right? That really makes Him mad, right? It does. If you read your Bible, you're supposed to set a servant free if you maim him, right? You can't keep him as your slave anymore, right? So you're not even reading the damn Bible, Southern men! Hello! As always, none of you want to know the truth. Southern man, better keep your head. Don't forget what your good book says. Southern man. Quote Neil Young. I know. But I understand, Alabama. Please, oh, Alabama, home sweet home. Uh-oh. But I know that song too, right? But you lazy white men, pick your own damn cotton. So that's right. Or pay me a decent wage, okay? You know what I mean? Right. If you don't want to do the job, I understand that. That ain't the problem. But pay me a good wage and I'll do the work. Oh no. Well, see, you do have the right to negotiate, right? Now, here's the problem with the men standing idle by the wall. The good man offered them a job. The agreement was for a penny a day. Now, he kept going back to that same wall and finding men by the wall. And he offered them the same thing, right? And again, and again, and again. Now, at the end of the day, right, other men have been working longer, but they all got a penny a day because that's what they all agreed to, right? That's still the fair wage you agreed to for that job, and you did not negotiate for more. at the same time, right? Why call you me evil? Because you wanted work. I gave you work for a penny a day, right? And I found more men to work for me, and I gave them the same offer later on throughout the day until a certain time, right? Because I needed the work done. And we had an agreement for a penny for your day's labor, right? Did we? Now, at the end of the day, I gave you all a penny, right? And then you act like I'm supposed to, what? Give you more because you were working longer in the day, right? I needed a lot of workers then. I still do now. Right? But the deal is a penny a day. No matter when I found them, saith the Lord, standing idle by the wall, I asked them all to work for me for a penny a day. Every hour I went out and found them men sitting by the wall. And we made a deal for a penny a day until the last group I found during the last few hours of the day. And you all agreed to the price would be a penny a day, no matter how long you worked in the field. That's a fair day's wage. Why? You agreed to the price. You agreed to the price. You didn't haggle. You didn't ask me for 2 pennies a day or 3 pennies a day. That would have been fine too. You could have asked for more money or less money too. Did you think of that? Oh, wonder why. But did I know I would find more men by the wall? I don't know, right? I need something done, right? So I'm hiring you for a penny a day. That's your price. We agreed to it already. So I'm paying you all a penny a day, no matter when I found you sitting idle by the wall. And it don't matter. And if you're working all day, or the last 3 hours of the day, right? We had that agreement. I went at a certain time, starting at the morning, right? Then around 9, right? Say 6, 9, 12, and 3, right? Right? And I found men standing idle by the wall, and I need to get a job done, right? And I hired you all for a penny a day. But at the end of the day, those who worked longer wanted to change it and me to give them more money when you all agreed to the terms. I'll give you a penny a day, right? No matter when I found them in working, that's what our deal was, right? Be it 6, 9, 12, 3, or even 4, 5, or 6, right? As long as the day is on, you can work. But when the night comes, right, you usually go to sleep. Right? Simple as that. But some people don't want to even get the penny I asked you to work for and get mad with me for how long you were working in the field when I started early in the morning, right? Trying to get help for my field, right? This is another way to put that story in perspective. By the way. But it kind of over-explains it to me, but I don't know. But it kind of clarifies the point of the owner of the field, right? And what he was doing, right? Do you understand, right? Just see in the minutes real quick. Right. Now, when I say I can pay you a penny a day, I go at 6, 9, 3, 12, 3, right? Or whatever time I go, right? Just an example, right? We all made the same deal. At the end of the day, you agreed to a penny for the work. All the men I hired, right? Don't call me evil because I want to pay you the penny I promised you, right? Take the penny. Take the penny. Can you understand? I don't understand. The penny is the point of paying you the penny. I'm not reneging on our deal. You're trying to. That was our deal. That was our deal. Now, you suppose you should get more, but that wasn't the deal. That wasn't the deal. You also had time before you got off to renegotiate the deal too, right? But once we agreed to the terms, right, and as the day went on, you did the labor I hired you to do for that one penny, right? And that's all we agreed to, that I would pay you that penny, right? But if I owed you more, right, you're extorting more, right? You're trying to make me pay you more for you work longer, right? In the day, right? And it's not the amount of time you worked in the field. We had a verbal word agreement of what I would pay you at the end of the day. Why can't you understand that, Christians? A penny for your thoughts, a nickel for a kiss, a dime if you tell me that you love me. But still, everyone wants to be told, I love you, right? And everyone wants a kiss. And everyone wants you to think of them, right? And that, or you're lying, or you're lying. But again, when you're buying and selling something, even if it's women, hypothetically, the difference between women and men is the Bible deals with the man enticing a woman before she's betrothed, right? Meaning she's in the girlfriend to boyfriend state of the relationship and they have premarital sex, right? He says you have two options. Either ask the girl to marry you herself, which is what I would do, right, Sheena? I did ask you to marry me in Jerusalem, right? I don't know if you got the letter or not. I don't know what happened, right? But I did. While we were dating, even though I don't know what was going on your ship and wasn't getting letters from you. Only sending Bible studies from Pastor Davis, right? Which were still Bible studies only, right? The very male-oriented, very male-oriented. And I could see there was problems in his church of gender inequalities at the wazoo. Jesus kept feeding me the scripture, right? Which one? Galatians 3:28. Galatians 3:28. Now, when I went into the church, the women were on one side and the men on the other, right? Even in their so-called fellowship hall. The women would have Bible studies somewhere else and the men in the church, right? I know. Kind of weird, huh? Now, the problem ain't that either, right? But only after church could we briefly interact with women. And then they had a dinner for usually the sailors, right? Who would eat there after lunch, right? And that's kind of how they did things. And then we would stay all day. Then have some kind of snack for supper, right? And I went out to the church daily because that's what they were teaching their converts to do, right? And get in their doctrine. But the more I got into their doctrine, the more certain scriptures were standing out to me alone, it seemed, right? And they weren't even teaching on them either. And I was noticing that, and they weren't in the true spirit of God, but in the spirit of Emperor Constantine and the Orthodox, even though they knew they changed some of the beliefs, right? But that's part of the problem too. Unless you read the Gnostic Gospels, you don't know what they changed or didn't change either. That's the problem, right? See, the enemy wants to confuse you about the truth in the first place. Not the Savior. He wants you to understand the truth, right? But the problem is when you're telling people something that happened, say, 2,000 years or 2,500 years before you wrote the Torah, you're still going to get some of the information from a Jewish source and an Egyptian source. And you got to figure out, or a Syrian source, right? All these were nations around Israel at the time, right? Exactly. When Moses supposedly, around the explosion of one of the volcanoes, right, in the Mediterranean Sea off the coast of Egypt, right? Which they think that's why, right? And when, right, Moses was able to free the slaves, right? Now, here's the problem. Not every person in Egypt were slaves, right? Slaves are people you make work for you, right, without paying them a good wage, right? You give them a little food, a little water, little shelter and housing, right? That's it. That's it. Now, when you pay someone $3.25 an hour or $2.15 an hour, or those are called slave wages, right? You're paying that person somewhat low. The other problem is with this kind of capitalistic money laundering scheme. The law of supply and demand means the more people need something, the more the price will go up. That's the consumer idea of capitalism, right? Okay, the consumer needs certain things, right? But that thing is starting to become in shorter supply. When that thing you need becomes in shorter supply, the price goes up. The price goes up. Not down. I know. Another problem is, one, we're reproducing like rabbits, as far as humans are concerned. Just this century. How big wow did our population spring up to, right? 8 billion rabbits. Silly rabbits. Tricks were made for kids. Quit acting like kids who want tricks and grow the hell up. Quit acting like rabbits humping each other. Male with male or female with female too. Not knowing what you're supposed to be doing or who you're supposed to be doing it with. And neglecting the fact that sex is pregnancy since Eden. Before the fall. That part of human reproduction never changed. The difference is, though, gay people, Satan introduced Adam to butt sex. And I think he liked it. A little bit too. But was also ashamed because Satan wouldn't stop, even though he asked him to stop probably. After he started. Now, it was probably hurting at first. Yeah. I know. But as it kept happening, he may have even liked it a little. That's called guilt and shame, right? The plot thickens. Right. Somehow, something introduced us to butt sex and sex with the same sex, which can mean it's only both at the same time. Idiot. And that's both gay and straight sex for the angel too, right? Now, I don't know if Jesus got certain women pregnant with or without sex, as he was divinely conceived, right, by his word of mouth, or if he didn't have sex with them too, trying to show that sex is the problem with a woman, even if you're an angel, right? The problem is men, okay, might also have sex with a hermaphrodite too, and try to impregnate Yoda, but guess what that means? She's already pregnant. He already became 3 before the cross, right? Why? To impregnate the female. I know. Think about it. Before the cross. Now, then they became one again. No. 2 more came out of Jesus, right? And Jesus and all 3 stood together. That's 3. That's your Trinity, right? But it's not thrice male or thrice female. It's androgynous, male, female. 3 separate forms from one being, right? That's why you're confused about the Trinity. The Catholics confuse the idea of Father, but the Mother. Mary ain't the mother in heaven. Jerusalem is. Catholics. Her name is Mrs. Jerusalem to you. And she's what God made every celestial being in heaven from, right? Even Eutychus. Gonna be in heaven, right? And fairies too. Just not on earth because Aaron repels it. Probably at all. No. See, what you little humans didn't know at the time when you were thinking about fairies is iron repels them. Well, guess what's in your blood? Iron. Did you know that? I know you didn't know that. You're an ignorant human being. That's just sad. Even your fairy tales can be scientifically disproven, right? Whether fairies exist in heaven or not can't, though, by the way. I'll let you go there, by the way. And I don't just mean paradise, I know. I mean the celestial realm itself. See, there's 3 heavens, right? Now, one of them is the heaven of earth, and all the stars and planets is the second. What's the third? Where God and the angels live. Yes. I've seen the third heaven. I've seen the throne of God, right? Without a man on it, but a little light. You ever heard the song, "This Little Light of Mine, I'm gonna let it shine"? Well, it's in your heart, right? And as long as you're alive, that little light sitting on the throne is the real God. It's not a man, it's not a woman. It's not a boy or a girl. It's not even a hermaphrodite, by the way. It's just the life of life that dwells in all human beings, right? No more, no less, too. And it loves us all, right? Even crazy Satan, right? Who he's trying to get to repent too, right? Even if he can or can't, right? Okay. Even if he has to cast him bodily into the lake of fire before he does, right? He's prepared to give us at least another week before he does that. Now, here's what's going to happen if he has to do that, though. A replenishment, right? Which takes you all the way back to day 1, right? Now, what is 20,000 years to the Lord? 20 days. Okay, do you understand? A day with the Lord is as 1,000 years. 1,000 years is as 1 day. What does that mean? Aren't you covering it both ways, right? 1 day, 1,000 years. 1,000 years, 1 day. What does that mean? 1,000 years is a day. 1,000 years is a day. Not 24-hour Earth days, but 1,000 years. 1 Earth day, 1 week, 1 month, 12 months a year, until 1,000 years being completed is a day to heaven. The third. Not the second, which is the one the stars are in, right? We call that space. Nor the heaven of Earth or the other planets, right? They have atmospheres too, right? Of different materials, right? But why? Do we have 8 or 9 planets? They call Pluto the dwarf planet. They hate that fool. Sir. Why you cut? Sir. Remember you. Pluto was our 9th planet. Now it's not a dwarf planet. Who cares? Whatever, right? 2. Whatever you classify it as, there's more than Pluto out there too, right? They didn't know that. And when you know something, right, and you discover Pluto, right, but you don't know there's nothing else out there until later on, right? Pluto was the 9th planet, but now we found out there's other rocks and things out there similar to Pluto, so there's more Plutos out there than we thought. Kind of, you gotta understand, right? They're called dwarf planets because they're similar to the Earth, but they're further out from the sun. Now let me ask you a question. If the Earth goes to a red giant, and there are materials outside the comfort zone, it's called the Goldilocks zone, right? Okay. Whatever I'm talking about is in the future, right? It ain't gone red. It's still a yellow star, right? But if it was to become a red giant, the dwarf planets could serve as what? Planets themselves, right? And you have a bunch of dwarf planets around the yellow sun. But when it becomes a red giant, what would happen then? Well, we have to make life outside of the new Goldilocks zone, right? As we found ourselves on planet Earth, right? Not just Mars, by the way. We got Jupiter, Saturn, right? And they're made of certain materials, right? There's a reason for that. Scientists, look into it. I'm not a scientist. I'm a religious person. But I'm a religious person who read it all. And I think part of a replenishing means you're building something on top of something else, on top of something else, on top of something else, on top of something else. What does that mean? You have layers of Earth on top of layers of Earth, including where there was an asteroid that hit the Earth at one point. But were we here or not? I don't know. I can't prove that. Because, see, the human population started with 2 people. In the area we call the Mesopotamian area, which is now called Turkey, right, where you find 2 of the rivers, the Tigris and Euphrates, mentioned in the Bible, especially Eden, right? Now, they don't know specifically where these rivers are, but there are 4 that are mentioned by Moses, right? And we don't know they didn't dry up. We don't know where they're at. We're no longer the same planet 3,500 years later, too, as it was when Moses was, right? things have changed over the thousands of years, right? And we're promised again another resurrection of the just first for 1,000 years, and then the unjust for 6,000 years, right? And then a great white throne judgment, whatever that means. And what happens then? Another replenishing. See, the fight continues during the third week, right? Between the good and the evil until the great white throne judgment in chapter 20 or so of Revelations. Then heaven and earth are made one again for a certain amount of time, right? And then you replenish the planet because you had to send fire to it to get rid of all the unjust people. Because they outnumber the just to begin with. But the just trust in God. The unjust don't. They're following Satan. So that's the problem. But he's still merciful. He'll give you another week. Even if you're unjust. But that's the third week. It's been 12 days or week and 5 days, right? That's the math. 6, 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 930 minus 1,000 is 70. 6,070 from day one, which says 1,000 years, and 1,000 years is day one. Yom God, Peter said. Day 2, 1,000 years. Day 3, 1,000 years. Day 4, 1,000 years. Day 5, 1,000 years. Animals in the sea, under the sea. And again, day 6, land animals appear. I know. Now, dinosaurs are between birds and reptiles, right? They could have been made in day 5. Before us. Day 6, another 1,000 years. Day 7, it rested from its creation. Now, in the day 7, we sinned. How long did he live? 930. 70 and 930 equals what? 1,000 years. 1,000 years. Day 7 ended when Adam died. 930 years later. Eve with him too, right? So, day 1 of the second week began shortly before the flood too. And again, from the flood to Moses involves Noah's son to Abraham's himself, then 430 years in Egypt according to Moses, and then from the destruction of Santorini, right, which is when they figure that happened, right, till now has been 3,500 years, or what? 3.5 days. Every so often, Jesus was the prophet, Moses was the prophet, and someone else is called one of the two witnesses. And you will know him by what? Well, Joseph's dreams. Two of them involved his family, right? One, they were as sheaves around his sheath and bow down, right? The other one was he saw the sun, the moon, and the 11 stars bow down to him, right? Now, sun was who? Jacob. Moon was who? Leah, but also her sister Rachel, but also Bilhah, and who? Zebah, whatever it is. And he had 4 wives. Right? who became known as the children of Israel. And from then to King David to Malachi, we have the Bible, covering the history of the religious people called the Jews. From then to Jesus, who is supposedly, to most of us who believe in him, as the Messiah, right, of Israel, but he, according to John, is the one who opened 7 seals. 2,000 years ago! But sealed by who? Emperor Constantine. Emperor Constantine and the Orthodox men, right? From 1700 years ago till 2025 is what? 325 AD. That was the Council of Nicaea where they got orthodoxy, and I wanted to know the truth of God. And started teaching a lot. That the man was the sun, no moon, which is what the female was. Right? Now, another problem of Satan is if there are stars in heaven from day 4, the sun, the moon, and the stars represent who? If God said, let there be light, and by day 4 the trees were on the earth, the universal planet, Earth, right, will be fully capable of supporting life, but trees need what to breathe? Oxygen and carbon dioxide, right? So, trees need carbon dioxide and we need oxygen, right? Love is like oxygen. You get too much, you get too high. Not enough and you're going to die. To die. Love makes us high. It does, doesn't it? But I forgot who sang the song. I heard it on the radio, okay? Okay. Maybe you know it. Maybe you don't. Maybe I sound like the person on the radio. Maybe I don't. I don't care if you believe it or not. Right. My job is to try to tell you what the Spirit is saying to the church, which you no longer hear. Whether you want to know it or not. Therefore, even if it's a choice for you not to believe me, as they crucified and didn't believe Jesus either, I still have a message to tell you from God. And I'm telling anyone who comes to the videos, period, right? Even if you disagree with me, right? But I'm still looking for a wife, a second male and his wife, is what the scriptures say, right? And I don't know what it all really means, but I'm a man. I admit I don't understand it all, but I have read it all. And I know what you're not teaching on, right? And that's what John is calling the 7 seals. In the Old Testament, or Tanakh, as the Jews call it. Well, the reason Muhammad came along is the Catholics became abusive, right? And orthodox in their understanding of Jesus, right? And he believed the Jews and Christians were both corrupt. So he wrote the Quran. But the problem is, right, he's taking the passages that Jesus is the prophet, right, like unto Moses, right, and applied it to himself like he was the prophet unto Moses, right. But he wasn't. You cannot tell a lie, like going to the moon, for example. Whether we went to the moon or not, we can't prove that. But we know NASA really put a rocket in the space at least close to the moon, not just because we got all these pictures, right, as proof of what the Earth looks like from above, right, which you can only get from outer space. You can't dictate what the Earth looks like from above, right? You have to have something actually in the air to take a picture of it, right? During the day, usually. And that